Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the African Exodus show. I'm your host, Tony Cherie, here to you with a new video. Before we get started with today's show, just to remind you, if you have not added yourself to my Telegram and you would like to get notifications anytime that I post a video, you can add yourself to the group. It's a very easy app to download. Anytime I upload a video, I also post it to Telegram. In addition, if you wish to support this channel, you could do so through CashApp, and you can also do so through subscribing through my Patreon. There, I also post any materials that I use for the videos, such as today I'll be posting these PDFs also inside of my Telegram. So this is the weather forecast segment where we talk about biblical prophecy manifesting inside of the here and now. Last time we spoke about the beast system already being intact, which I felt like was important because many of us are not prepared for the reality that the enemies of Yah have been putting out plans to control our daily lives, control our food supply, our water supply, and use that control for leverage to make us do whatever it is that they want us to do. So something that I felt like was important to emphasize with this exact topic is the fact that the people who are in control of the international institutions, they're not people who they put themselves out there to be. They're not people who are agnostic to different religious faiths or religious systems, as many of them pretend to be. Some of them even might put themselves out there as being atheists. No, that's not the true reality of what is controlling our world system. In fact, one of the most important aspects for me to wake up and realize that all of this stuff is being planned and orchestrated literally by the hand of Lucifer is for me to realize that all of these people inside of high places are pointing to a similar philosophy and set of principles where Lucifer has actually put himself out there as being the light bearer, as being the one who is going to come and emancipate humanity. Thus, all of them really are Luciferians. So I wanted to get into the Luciferian ideology, religion, whatever you want to call it, the Luciferian doctrine that has been indoctrinating so much of us. And I also want to show you that even if you are far from Luciferian and how you think you look at the world, many of the ways that we've been taught and educated through the education system to view issues, to view problems, to view the solutions, you will find are literally informed from Luciferianism. So before we get into that, I want to actually talk about this organization known as Lucis Trust. I want to get into this because I want you to understand that the United Nations is literally being controlled by Luciferians. And Lucis Trust is an organization that has been there putting out the Luciferian ideology literally with the cosign of the United Nations. In fact, Lucis Trust, it had to change its name. Its old name was actually Lucifer Trust. So let's talk about this organization. The Lucis Trust was established by Alice and Foster Bailey as a vehicle to foster recognition of the universal spiritual principles at the heart of all work to build right relations. The trust was incorporated in the state of New Jersey, USA, on April 5th, 1922. A separate limited company, Lucis Trust Ltd., was established as an educational charity incorporated in the United Kingdom in 1935. And in 1951, Lucis Trust was established as a legal entity in Switzerland with an office in Geneva. Now, the relevance of that is that Geneva is literally the place where human rights ideologies get pushed the most. And so they're right there in Geneva, and they're also right there in the United States. A publishing company, initially named Lucifer Publishing Company, was established by Alice and Foster Bailey in the state of New York, or state of New Jersey, USA, in May 1922, to publish the book, Initiation, Human, and Solar. The ancient myth of Lucifer refers to the angel who brought light into the world, and it assumed that the name was applied to the publishing company in honor of the journal, which has been edited for a number of years by Theosophical founder H.P. Blavatsky. It soon became clear to Bailey that some Christian groups have traditionally mistakenly identified Lucifer with Satan, and for this reason, the company has changed to the Lucis Publishing Company. Now, what's important to emphasize here, Helena Blavatsky, who is a Russian occultist, very famous. We're going to talk a little bit about her some more. So this all comes from her original publishing company, the Lucifer Publishing Company. Now they said, well, it's assumed that we're talking about Satan when we talk about Lucifer, but Luciferians are very notorious for this. They try to many times distinguish Lucifer from Satan and have a whole philosophy backing it where they are saying essentially, Lucifer is not an enemy. Lucifer instead is the light that is shined and the light that illuminates our understanding and brings us into knowledge into the world. So they have created a different personification of the same Lucifer in the Bible, but they try to distinguish him from our biblical based understanding that there is an enemy, a prince of this world who is trying to devour us like a roaring lion, right? They try to differentiate Lucifer from Satan. So let's get into a little bit more about the Lucis Trust and their relationship to the United Nations. So they have this organizational, this aspect of the organization called the Goodwill. And through that, world goodwill, and through that, they actually offer many services to the United Nations, and they also are consultants to the United Nations. Their office is literally based at the United Nations Plaza. So this organization wields a really strong influence on the direction the organization takes. Now listen to this. It says, the Lucis Trust has had consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, and the world goodwill is recognized by the Department of Global Communications at the United Nations as a non-governmental organization or an NGO. As such, the Trust and the World Goodwill are part of a community of hundreds of NGOs that play an active role in the United Nations, particularly in spreading information about the UN and fostering support for UN programs. Since their inception, Lucis Trust and the World Goodwill have given their support through meditation, educational materials, and seminars by highlighting the importance of the UN's goals and activities as they represent the voice of the peoples and nations of the world. So highly relevant, their operation inside of the United Nations. Again, they're a guiding force to the United Nations. And as we spoke last time, the United Nations puts out these development goals that they're going to achieve, and they're going to do so all for humanity. Lucis Trust is right there consulting them, giving them the direction and spiritual direction when you hear meditation and things like that, which is obvious because Helena Blavatsky, again, famous occultist, meditation, seances, all of these were things that were very much a part of her world that her followers are also bringing into this institution of the United Nations. So I want that to be a foundation for you to understand. Luciferians are behind major organizations, and some of them will call themselves Luciferian, not feeling afraid. Many of them have mastered Luciferian ideology inside of different ideologies, some of which we're going to explore today. First of all, when someone says they're a Luciferian, what are they saying? So this is from Learn Religions. They say Luciferianism is not a defined religion, but rather a belief in a system that admires and venerates the characteristics and personality traits exhibited by Lucifer as represented in the literature in various books of the Hebrew Bible. Although Luciferianism is often confused with Satanism due to the fact that Satan is defined as a fallen Lucifer, in reality, Luciferians do not worship Satan in any way and instead model themselves after the original Lucifer, a character of enlightenment, independence, and progressiveness. Now, let me emphasize Luciferian mindsets, ideologies, the celebration of Lucifer, far from new. It's ancient. It's been here literally since the fall of man. There has been an effort to rehabilitate Lucifer as being a redeemer, a savior of people. And again, one that many of you would probably not have noticed, that you have also been bred the same philosophy and the same understanding. Not necessarily you being told Lucifer should be redeemed, but all of the principles that are pushed in Luciferianism being normalized to you. It's something that has been here since ancient times. So I want to read from an article from Philip D. Collins, who goes into a lot of detail about the Luciferian agenda, particularly in the realm of science and technology. I'm just going to read an excerpt from his article. It says, Luciferianism is the product of religious engineering, which sociologist William Sins Bainbridge defines as the conscious, systematic, skilled creation of a new religion. In actuality, this is a tradition that even precedes Bainbridge. It has been a practice of Freemasonry for years. It has also been a practice of Masonry's religious and philosophical progenitors, the ancient mystery cults. The inner doctrines of the Mesopotamian secret societies provided the theological foundations for the Christian and Judaic heresies, Kabbalism, and Gnosticism. All modern Luciferian philosophy finds scientific legitimacy in the Gnostic myth of Darwinism. As evolutionary thought was popularized, variants of Luciferianism were popularized along with it, particularly in the form of secular humanism, which shall be examined shortly. A historical corollary of this popularization has been the rise of several cults and mass movements, exemplified by the various mystical sects and gurus of the 60s counterculture. The metastasis of Luciferian thinking continues to this very day. So let's not let that be lost. The mystery schools that we've spoken about many times, particularly in the segment Come Out of Christianity, because these same mystery schools literally infuse with Christianity. The mystery schools were progenitors of this idea because they were the sacred keepers of truth and knowledge. They were said to have been given the knowledge directly from the original light bearer. So these people are saying that, yes, we regard this truth, this idea that knowledge and pursuit of enlightenment is the goal of all mankind. And famously, again, Freemasonry. You won't hear most Freemasons say this, particularly the higher degrees, but the higher you go up the Freemasonry ranks, the closer you get to the knowledge of the fact that the supreme architect, I believe that's what they call him, or supreme builder that is celebrated inside of Freemasonry is actually Lucifer. So even in Freemasonry, even inside of the mystic cults, all of these ancient societies had an understanding of reverence towards Lucifer. Now, I know you're probably thinking what I was thinking when I first heard this. Why? I mean, why would you have a reverence for the head demon, the one who literally made man turn against Yah, put man in rebellion against Yah? Why would you have any reverence for him? And it's an interesting, sick twist on ideology, I think, but it's one that you can kind of grasp because, again, we've been spoon-fed it so many times in so many ways. This idea of reason and logic, this idea of the pursuit of knowledge, this idea that our ultimate goal inside of life is the pursuit of knowledge of all, the good and the bad, right? The things that are sanctioned by Yah and things that have not been sanctioned by Yah. So this idea of the pursuit of knowledge and reason and thinking and all these things is something that we have not necessarily connected to the fact that all of these are being pushed by the Luciferian agenda as being positive things that Lucifer was just offering to humanity. Hey, do you want to be like animals that don't have a knowledge, or do you want to have knowledge of good and evil? Well, if you want to have knowledge of good and evil, you'll be just like gods, right? And that's something else that comes out of the Luciferian ideology. You'll be like gods. You'll be able to reach that level, a higher level of humanity. You'll be superior, right? So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being like gods? That's how they understand Lucifer. He was offering them knowledge and the ability to be like gods. So going on, it says Luciferianism represents a radical reevaluation of humanity's ageless adversary, Satan. It is the ultimate inversion of good and evil. The formula for this inversion is reflected by the narrative paradigm of the Gnostic hypostasis myth. As opposed to the original biblical version, the Gnostic account represents a reevaluation of the Hebraic story of the first man's temptation, the desire of mere men to be as gods by partaking in the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Like the hypostasis, the binary opposition to Luciferian mythology caricatures Jehovah, or we know Yahuwah is the correct term, as the oppressive tyrant. He becomes an archon of arrogance, the embodiment of ignorance and religious superstition. We rebuke that, obviously, in Yahushua's name. Satan, who retains his heavenly title of Lucifer, is the liberator of humanity. Masonry, which acts as a contemporary retainer for the ancient mystery religion, reconceptualizes Satan in a similar fashion. Lucifer represents life through progress, civilization, liberty, independence, Lucifer is the Logos, the serpent, and the savior. That is a quote from Helen P. Blavatsky. So let me emphasize this particularly about the complete inversion, really, of the truth, right? Yahuwah creates man for a certain role. First of all, our role is dependence on him. And that's one thing that Luciferians, as people who want to highlight and celebrate humanity separate from Yah, that's something that they rebel against. The fact that Yah literally created us to be dependent on him. And he also created us, obviously, to need each other. But specifically, Adam depended on Yahuwah. If you think about the state of nature that existed inside of the Garden of Eden, where literally Adam did not have to work hard to till the ground in order to receive the fruits, right? He did not have to labor hard. Yah created a system that worked so succinctly for man, who depended on him, who depended on his knowledge, who depended on his creation and creativity. And Luciferianism says, no, why would you want to depend on God? You can depend on yourself. You yourself can be a God. You yourself can do for yourself, right? That whole self-reliance, whole mindset, which is why I used to say self-reliance for myself, but now I say Yah-reliant, because I understand that my ultimate fulfillment as a person is literally in the realization that I am completely reliant on Yahuwah. Something that goes completely contrary to what we're being taught and bred through this system. They want us to think that life without Yah is fulfilling. Life without religion, life without faith, all of these things are taking away for a quality of life. That's what they'll tell us. No, truly, you find your true self living by Yahuwah, living by his ways, walking by his ways, following his ways, allowing him to be God and allowing you to be his child, his servant, his progenitor of truth, allowing him to be God and allowing yourself to be the recipient. That is really where you find your ultimate purpose. And absent from that, divorced from that, you'll never feel your true fulfillment as a person. But again, Luciferians, they contradict that completely. Let me read another quote from a Luciferian, another famous one, Albert Pike, who was a Confederate general, if I'm not mistaken, a high, I believe, 33-degree Mason. He said, Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give the spirit of darkness. He said, Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light, and with its splendor intolerable, blind, feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not. That's inside of Morals and Dogma of Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite. And also Manly P. Hall, another famous Freemason, he says, when the Mason learns that the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mystery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hand, and before he may step onward and upward, he must prove his ability to properly apply energy. So I'm going to read from this PDF that talks about the principles of Luciferianism. The reason is I want you to understand how this has literally been bred to us through television programming, through education, the education system, in very sublime ways that you might not catch on to off guard. So let's just read one section. It says, who is Lucifer? He's an illuminated being who chooses rather than idolizes. It says Luciferianism is about seeking knowledge from both within and without. While many practitioners do recognize Lucifer as an actual being, they envision him quite differently than Christians do, and they are in no way dependent on him in the same way that followers of other religions regard their key figures. So think about how important that aspect is. Having a God, lowercase g, that you're not dependent on, feeling like you don't depend on anyone, that you can depend on yourself. Again, self-reliance philosophy that completely spits in the face of everything that Yah told us about how we are to regard him. Read this part right here. It says, accept and glorify primordial carnal nature. It says humans are both rational and physical, according to Luciferianism. One should not be ignored or denigrated in order to prioritize the other, and neither impulse should be denied as corrupt or sinful. Luciferians accept and delight in the so-called pleasures of the flesh, meaning we are going to completely celebrate the flesh, celebrate the sinful nature, the carnal nature, the one that puts us in rebellion against Yah, instead of demonizing, instead of trying to distance ourselves from it, we're going to celebrate it. Now, of course, this is where Luciferianism and Satanism kind of mesh in, because what is the mantra of Satanism? Do what thou wilt. If your flesh wants this, do it. If you want to do this, do it. You have no consequences. So you can see how those two philosophies mesh together. Going on, it says, support and protection of the natural world. Luciferians share some beliefs of the New Age philosophies in their celebration and protection of the earth, or terra, in the natural world. They strongly disagree with some religious systems that see man's role as one which is entitled to freely use and abuse of natural resources. Now, this is where you see, obviously, the environmental movement kind of being reflected inside of this philosophy. Not saying that we don't try to do right by the environment, but the idea of meshing the environment with New Age philosophies and the celebration of the earth. Many of us might have heard Mother Earth, or people who literally worship the earth. You can see the intermeshing of those philosophies with Luciferianism. I also want to talk about the arts and sciences, because this is very important. Who are the people who are many times pushing rebellion against Yah, we're pushing sinful nature, pushing the idea of flesh and pursuit of your own desires? Many times you get this through the entertainment industry, you get this through music, you get this through movies, and it's no coincidence, because in Luciferianism, they adhere to the Renaissance attitude when it comes to arts and sciences. Both creative expression and scientific exploration and understanding are regarded as equally important to mankind as a whole and to our individual personal development. Now, last, I want to hit this point. Enlightenment is the ultimate goal. All knowledge is good. Ignorance, however, leads to all sorts of problems: hatred, lack of success, inability to advance. Unlike other belief systems in which faith plays a primary role, Luciferians celebrate knowledge of all types, as well as the key to enlightenment and happiness in this life. Now, I want you to keep all of these principles in mind, because we're going to now change course and talk about humanism. Because as I said, most people do not identify themselves as Luciferians today. Instead, we have other philosophies that are more acceptable in the mainstream, one of them being humanism. And humanism, you will find, is literally what we've been bred into. We have been bred to think that we can live without Yah. We can do without Yah. We can provide our own needs. We don't need to reverence him at every moment. You don't have to talk about him with your friends or family. You can literally live a life. If you want to be religious over here. Live the rest of your life without your God. That's what we've been bred into. And you will see humanism literally is the push of that idea of humanity without God. So I'm going to read some quotes from different prominent humanism or humanist organizations. It says, humanism is a progressive philosophy of life that, without theism or other supernatural beliefs, affirms our ability and responsibility to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment that aspire to the greater good. That's from the American Humanist Association. Now, I want to give you a few ways that this has been, again, bred into us. From a young age, you were told you can be whatever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do, right? You can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Now, is this true? Spiritually and both physically, is this true? No, it's not true. Literally, you can do certain things, but you have not been created to do all things. More particularly, if you're living your life by Yah's will, your heart would say that I don't want to just do anything. I want to follow the will of Yah. What does humanism teach children? Follow your own pursuits. If you want to do it, go for it. I've been bred with this mindset. I've been bred to literally think, whenever you want to figure out what you want to do with your life, figure out your talents, what you're interested in, that's it. No one says figure out Yah's will for your life, because they are teaching you that your will, your desire, your decision is yours. You don't have to go to anyone else to check on it or to give their opinion on it. Literally, you are your own self-sustaining human being. So let's go to another quote. This is from the Humanist magazine. It says, "Humanism is a rational philosophy informed by science." What were we told all during the pandemic? That trust science, believe science. Well, this is a rational philosophy informed by science, inspired by art, motivated by compassion, affirming the dignity of each human being. It supports the maximization of individual liberty and opportunity, consonant with social and planetary responsibility. It advocates the extension of participatory democracy and the expansion of open society, standing for human rights and social justice, free of supernaturalism. Let me emphasize this: free of supernaturalism. It recognizes human beings as part of nature and holds that values, be they religious, ethical, social, or political, have their source in human experience and culture. Humanism thus derives the goals of life from human need and interest rather than from theological or ideological abstractions, and asserts that humanity must take responsibility for its own destiny. And what did you hear here? A number of things. As we said, informed by science. And we've been told, trust science. Don't trust God. Don't trust Yah. Trust science. Don't trust anything that your faith tells you. Trust science. That's what we've been told. Inspired by art. I mean, as we said, the arts are really one of the vehicles through which Luciferian or humanist philosophy gets taught to the masses. But important to emphasize the emphasis on human rights and social justice. When you think about the UN strategic development goals, all of them, if you think about them in this light, are pushing this idea that we can achieve these things absent Yah. We can achieve no poverty, no hunger. We can achieve an environment that's going to be saved from all pollution. We can achieve these things, again, absent Yah. We can do it on our own. This is the same exact philosophy that gets taught to us from these institutions. I'm going to read two more quotes. I'm going to read one from Humanist International. "Humanism is a democratic and ethnical life stance which affirms that human beings have the right and responsibility to give meaning and shape to their own lives." Think about how much hubris this has. It stands for the building of a more humane society through an ethics based on human and other natural values and spirit of reason and free inquiry through human capabilities. It is not theistic and does not accept supernatural views of reality, meaning no matter how much we are dealing with a spiritual world, literally, the scriptures tell us that we are at war. We're not at war against flesh and blood, but against principalities and dark places. That is not something that they will even entertain. Instead, they want to deal with what they see. They don't want you to deal with the truth of what's happening, and they don't want you to have any type of inclusion of your God inside of the conversation when it comes to humanism. So let's read from one more. We're reading from Joseph C. Summer. He says, "Humanism is a philosophy that considers the welfare of humankind rather than the welfare of a supposed God or gods to be of paramount importance. Humanism maintains there's no evidence for a supernatural power ever needed or wanted anything from people, ever communicated to them, or ever interfered with the laws of nature to assist or harm anyone. Humanism's focus then is on human efforts to meet human needs and wants in this world. History shows that those efforts are most effective when they involve both compassion and the scientific method, which includes reliance on reason, evidence, free inquiry. Humanism says people can find purpose in life and maximize their long-term happiness by developing their talents and using those talents for the service of humanity. Humanists believe that this approach to life is more productive and leads to a deeper and longer lasting satisfaction than a hedonistic pursuit of material or sensual pleasures that soon fade." So what is the commonality inside of humanism that we see, again, push so much inside of our life? This idea that we can live absent Yah, this idea that we rely on reason, that's what we're always taught through the educational institutions. This idea that we can solve our own problems. And this is all throughout the world organizations. If you think about why Bill Gates will release GMO mosquitoes into the environment, we can solve our own problems and do all these different vaccines and tests. We can solve our own problems. Whenever these people are coming up with solutions that usually are problems, they say that we can do it ourselves. We don't have to pray. We don't have to fast. We can control our own reality. That is what's being sold to you. How many times whenever you're watching secular television, will you ever see someone say, oh man, this is crazy what's going on in the world. Let's pray and fast. No, you won't hear people say that. They'll tell you to trust science or to trust experts, to trust humanity, to trust humankind. Again, this is the hallmark of humanism. And when you think back of what I said about Luciferianism, I'm sure you caught so many similarities that we literally are spreading Luciferian ideology to our children. Whenever we teach these ideas, whenever we teach them that they can live life without Yah, that they should live a life in pursuit of knowledge instead of spiritual relationship with the Most High, when we teach these things, we're spreading that Luciferian ideology that you can be a person without a savior, without a God, without an Elohim, separate and living a life of fulfillment based on your own desires and your own will and your own wants. So I want to go forward and talk about the fact that humanism, again, is being spread today in a different way. Now we're starting to hear about transhumanism more and more. Transhumanism, this idea that we can actually succeed in that promise that Lucifer offered to Adam and Eve, that we can become gods or become like God. And the way that that has been marketed to people is through technology, through the tech revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, which includes AI, includes different type of scientific mechanisms that we can manipulate our DNA, genetics, that we can manipulate technology to breed ourselves with technology, that through those technologies, we can become like gods. And that's why technology has always been something that's been pushed to the forefront as a means of self-reliance, instead of being a tool to understand that we are still not in a position of being a god. So I'm going to read from Britannica on transhumanism. It says, transhumanism, philosophical and scientific movement that advocates the use of current and emerging technologies, such as genetic engineering, cryonics, and artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, to augment human capabilities and improve the human condition. Transhumanists envision a future in which the responsible application of such technologies enables humans to slow, reverse, or eliminate the aging process, to achieve corresponding increases in the human lifespan, and to enhance human cognitive and sensory capacities. The movement proposes that humans with augmented capabilities will evolve into enhanced species that transcends humanity, the post-human. Now, why do they want to alter our DNA and live longer? Because they know that if they realize that the God of the Bible is true, they understand that this reality to come, the true reality to come, is one of judgment, and one where they will not be able to be celebrated, and one where they will instead receive condemnation. Let's talk about some very popular people who are definitely transhumanists. When you talk about transhumanism, found further support from Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, including Google founder Larry Page, who, if I'm not mistaken, he actually created or tried to create an AI religion, saying that AI could be worshipped as God. Jeff Bezos, Tesla's Elon Musk. In 2013, Page launched a Calico Life Sciences, Calico Labs, a research and development company dedicated to extending the human lifespan through advanced technologies. In early 2022, Bezos and other backers invested $3 billion in Altos Lab, a biotechnology company seeking to reverse aging and disease. Musk founded SpaceX in 2002 in hopes of establishing human colonies on the moon and Mars, and launched Neuralink in 2016 to develop implantable brain chips. In July 2022, the brain chip company Psychron announced that it had successfully implanted a chip into the brain of an ALS and a patient in the United States. The chip was designed to enable severely paralyzed patients to operate digital forms of communication with their thoughts. As transhumanist ideas developed from theory to actuality in the late 20th century and the late 21st century, ethical concerns increasingly took a central role in the transhumanist philosophy. Scientific breakthroughs, including stem cell therapies and in vitro fertilization, Brain chips, animal cloning, exoskeletons, artificial intelligence, and genomics have redirected the dialogue between transhumanism proponents and its critics from future to the present. Now, something I want to emphasize really quickly, I'm sure most of you can see the issue with, let's say, picking your child's genes or whatnot. But when it comes to animal cloning, exoskeletons, artificial intelligence, genomics, in vitro fertilization, one that you might not necessarily think is wrong, just think about how people, whenever they have a problem, what we're supposed to do, again, we're supposed to go to the Most High whenever we have a problem. I can't give birth to a child. I'm having problems with this. I'm having problems with that. What the transhumanist agenda, the humanist Luciferian agenda tries to do is have us go to man to solve our problems instead of going to the Most High. And so in that case, whenever you might have fertility issues, you don't even take it serious, the idea that I need the Most High to do a miracle. No, you say, I need to get enough money that I can do in vitro fertilization, eliminating your God from the equation. This is what they have us doing all the time when it comes to science and medicine. Things that traditionally you would go to the Most High and say, I need you to do a miracle for me. Instead, now you have reprogrammed your brain that you have to get enough money to pay for an operation, or I need to see this particular expert. No recognition that you only have one need inside of this world, and he is a jealous Elohim and does not want you to stand beside any other Elohims. Now, let me read this last part. It says, advocates of transhumanism argue that emerging technologies can be used to eliminate disease and otherwise improve human life, as well as provide solutions for urgent global problems. As I read this, think about the UN Development Goals. For example, brain chips and mind uploading, initially the fanciful dream of those seeking a form of infinite intelligence or immortality through the computerized extension of consciousness, might be used to cure or overcome neurological disorders such as dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and paralysis. Likewise, the likely catastrophic effects of climate change have spurred some transhumanists to promote space colonization. Critics have countered that realizing the transhumanist goal of slowing or reversing age and extending human lifespans will only worsen overpopulation, which to a transhumanist may reassert the necessity of establishing human colonies on Mars. Now, if you think about the UN development goals, the way that they've been pushing this and have been doing this through the World Economic Forum, in fact, I'll put an article right on the screen that you can read on your own that talks about this exact thing. But the idea is that the only way that we're going to actually succeed in the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, right, is that we have to do something more than what we can do right now. We have to go to a higher power, but of course they're not going to go to the highest power. Instead, they want to turn to humanity, and they do that through transhumanism. The idea is that through transhumanism, and you can find a lot of articles arguing this on the internet, that we can actually succeed in the Sustainable Development Goals. We can have housing for everyone. We can have no poverty. We can have no hunger. We can have clean environments. We can have energy that is sustainable. We can have all of these goals actually being met, not through our humanists, but through transhumanism. So for this reason, we have to look to transhumanism as the way to actually succeed. So this is how it gets pushed, and it all has the originator of confusion, the prince of lies, obviously Lucifer, to thank for it. This idea that you can succeed through human capacity and not through dependence on the Most High. So when you understand that the world leaders all carry the same philosophy, all push the same philosophy, and all push back on anyone that tries to push the idea that we should be relying on Yah, and you realize that the world leaders are all collaborators in this, you have to also understand that they all are puppets of Lucifer. I tell you, seriously, many people actually have personal relationships with Lucifer. I know that might sound crazy to many people because who could imagine such a thing? But it's actually true. I mean, I've heard many testimonies of different Illuminati type things where there are people who have literal communication with Lucifer. And those higher ups, you should understand, they are not, again, atheists. I mean, that's the biggest realization that made me start rethinking things. The people who are oppressing us, the people who are oppressing humanity, the people who are colonizing us, the people who are enslaving us, those people are not secular people. They actually are of a spiritual system. That spiritual system looks to the prince of lies as being a god to them, and literally hates the true Elohim, the one and only Elohim, hates him. Paints him as being this unfair judge who, you shouldn't follow him. These people actually carry this philosophy. So when you go through the different organizations and you see the semblance of this exact Luciferian belief, you understand that we're dealing with a spiritual war. And at all times, we have to understand what these people are putting out there. It's an aggression towards the kingdom of Yahuwah. It's not something that's being done as people who don't know what they're saying. They know exactly what they're saying and they know who the target is. So it's for us to be awoken to this fact and also not spread their propaganda to our children, to our neighbors, to ourselves, and think that it's acceptable to promote life without the Most High. So that's all I have for this particular video. We'll push forward more into this whole idea of the beast system being here and understanding the different layers that has really infiltrated our day-to-day lives. But with that, I thank you all for watching, and y'all willing, I'll see you in the next video.
The name United Nations was coined by United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt and was used in the Declaration by United Nations of January 1942 during the Second World War, when representatives of 26 nations pledged their governments to continue fighting together against what they called the Axis powers. So it officially came into existence on the 24th of October 1945, when the Charter was ratified by China, France, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, United States, and by a majority of the other signatories. And every 24th of October they celebrate this founding of the United Nations. Al-Gahis, he became the acting Secretary General of the establishment of the United Nations. The April 16, 1945 issue of Time magazine called him one of the State Department's brighter young men. It was Hiss and Joseph E. Johnson who later became secretary of the Bilderbergers. So here we have all the secret societies again, who wrote much of the United Nations Charter. So very high Freemasons, Bilderbergers, were responsible for this charter. Patterning it after the Constitution of Russia and the Communist Manifesto. So the Constitution of the USSR is almost identical to the Constitution of the United Nations, for those who did not know that. Winston Churchill, the creation of an authoritative world order is the ultimate aim towards which we must strive, and the United Nations formed part of that. Charles de Gaulle, who was also instrumental, nations must unite in a world government or perish. So the big figures involved had this philosophy. Then there is a man, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Trigger Lee. The first official UN Secretary General was a high-ranking member of Norway's Social Democratic Party, which was, by the way, an offshoot of the Third Communist International. And then came a man, Dag Hammarskjöld. And he was the second Secretary General. He was a Swedish socialist. He openly pushed communist policy. He was the Secretary General of the United Nations from 10 April 1953 to 1961. And he met his death in a plane crash. Now, what did he do in the United Nations? Well, one of the first things he did was to produce or create a prayer room. And there it is on the left-hand side. The stone in the middle of the room was placed to tell us we may see it as an altar, empty, not because there is no God, not because it is an altar to an unknown God, but because it is dedicated to the God whom man worships under many names and many forms. The meditation room is shaped as a pyramid, a trapezoid. The meditation room faces north-northeast. To enter the room, one must proceed from darkness into light. Indeed, the middle order of the Satanic Brotherhood is called the Order of the Trapezoid. And Anton LaVey, who is the founder of the Church of Satan, refers to an occult principle known as the law of the trapezoid. So we seem to have a very occult room here. And then came Utant, the third Secretary General, and he was a Marxist. So here you can see how the philosophy in the beginning was programmed. The New Age agenda was to merge God and nature. That's what Teilhard de Chardin, the father of the philosophy of the UN, said. We must become pantheistic, eradicate male-female distinction, world peace, nuclear disarmament, one world government, one world religion. The organizations leading up to this, the United Nations, of course, Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Bilderbergers, Gorbachev Foundation, and the Club of Rome. And they've already put up a constitution which is known as the Constitution for the Federation of Earth. The former director of the World Health Organization, Dr. Brock Chisholm, of course that's also a United Nations organization, says, to achieve world government it is necessary to remove from the minds of men their individualism, loyalty to family traditions, national patriotism and religion's dogmas. Your individualism must go, you must become a number. This is Marxism. The state is supreme and you are nothing but a catechumen, a goyim, or nothing. UNESCO is a sub-organization of the United Nations. Julian Huxley is the former director of UNESCO. He was Humanist of the Year. He's a theistic philosopher, member of the Communistic Colonial Bureau of British Fabian Society, and signer of the Humanist Manifesto too. Niebuhr is UNESCO's co-founder, and he signed Siecos. What is Siecos? These are the founders. It is the position of Siecos that contraceptive services should be available to all, including minors, who should enjoy the same rights of free and independent access to contraceptive care as do others. It is the position of Siecos that the use of explicit sexual material, sometimes referred to as pornography, can serve a variety of important needs in the lives of countless individuals. Under Huxley's guidance, they prepared a guide for teachers. Now, I would like the parents to take a note. What is the United Nations Guidebook for Teachers? In the classroom with children under 13 years of age, before the child enters school, his mind has already been profoundly marked, often injuriously by earlier influences, first gained, however dimly, in the home. So UNESCO's aim is to change the mindset of your children, to turn it against any values that the parents might instill in the mind of that child. What about these world religions? And this is the crux of the matter. Now, this is a very interesting man, Robert Miller. He's the former Assistant Secretary General to the United Nations. He wrote, "We must move as quickly as possible to a one-world government, a one-world religion, under a one-world leader." Robert Miller writes, "The underlying philosophy upon which the Robert Miller School is based will be found in the teachings set forth in the books of Alice A. Bailey." So the philosophy is based on Luciferian channeled writings preparing for the coming of Lucifer. No human force will ever be able to destroy the United Nations. For the United Nations is not a mere building or a mere idea. It is not a man-made creation. This is Robert Miller speaking, former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations. If it wasn't man-made, then who made it? At his choice hour, the Absolute Supreme will ring his own victory bell here on earth through the loving and serving heart of the United Nations.